Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Hey everybody, we are in for a treat today. We've got a conversation with Kristen Jenson of Protect Young Eyes. And I'm excited for this conversation on a personal level because this has affected my own family and life. As a ministry, I'm excited to tell you about these resources because they are very tangible, very available resources. It is a two-part conversation, so we'll cover kind of the introduction to the book, and then we'll take a break right in the middle. I'm excited to bring this hope-focused conversation about a difficult subject. Good pictures and bad pictures. And with no further ado, we'll jump right in. Enjoy the conversation. Welcome to the Gospel Tech Podcast. My name is Nathan Sutherland, and this podcast is dedicated to helping families love God and use tech. Today, we are joined by Kristen Jenson, the founder of Defend Young Minds and the author of the #1 best-selling book, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. We've talked about this a lot, as well as Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior, and her newest title, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Guide for Girls. It just came out this last March. So, Kristen, thank you for being here.
It is so great to be with you, Nathan. I love talking about how we can use technology for good and keep kids safe from it.
And I'm excited for this conversation. First, thank you for making these resources. As I mentioned just in that brief intro, your resources are used, yes, around the world. They're helping defend children from sexual exploitation and equipping parents and caregivers to have the hard conversations about unsafe versus safe content online. Mm-hmm. And I've got 3 kids of my own, 12, 10, and 7. And all of them have been through one of these books, either the Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, or the junior version. And they are empowering. They equip us to say good words to our kids, to parent out of hope, not fear. So thank you for these resources, first off.
Thank you.
Yeah. Second off, I'm excited for our audience to hear from you personally because for context, if you're new to this podcast and you haven't heard this book really does 3 things. It gives a helpful description of pornography that isn't traumatic to your kids. Second, it's a collaborative story. It's not a lecture. So you're not just going to be like, don't do bad stuff. And third, it gives a clear action plan. So Kristen, the first book, it's say no, look away, and in the most recent guide, specifically name it, that's porn. And then tell a caring adult. And listeners, what's awesome about this is that's empowering you to do what you want to do, which is parent well. Kristen, if I were to ignore all that context, and I didn't just tell our audience, and someone goes, hey, like, I'm scared, my kid wants a smartphone, or my kid's going to school, they're riding a bus, like, how do I do it? What should I tell a parent about this book? What's the core purpose of this book for someone hearing about it for the first time?
Well, first of all, it's to open that conversation and make it safe for a child to come to a parent and say, this is what I saw. It also gives kids a vocabulary to use. So whether they say it's a bad picture, whether they say it's pornography, that is, it normalizes that conversation, right? Because unfortunately, access to pornography is a normal experience for most children. And that is sad. Shouldn't be that way. Wish it weren't. But what are we going to do? Until we can, put up those iron gates on the internet and keep kids from it, we have to give kids an internal filter so they know how and why to reject it. So you mentioned the description. So like a definition, here's what it is, but a very simple age-appropriate definition that just lets them recognize it. And then giving them reasons to reject it, not just like you said, it's bad, don't look, Yeah. We need to help them understand how it can be bad for them, bad for their brain, and bad for the way they see other people, which in my new girls book, we talk a lot about objectification. And so we can get more into that later, and then to give them an action plan, right? So they know exactly what to do when they see pornography. And that can not only be helpful for them not to get pulled into it, but also not to get pulled into a situation that is like a predator situation, because predators do use pornography to groom children. So it can keep kids safe in so many ways. So a definition, a warning, and a plan, and helps parents comfortably open that conversation and empower their children. And it's not a one and done. You got to keep up this conversation, but to open up that conversation so a kid knows what to do when they're faced with it is really the main object of that book. And I think can be very successful for parents in opening up that conversation.
And well, let's jump on that, because the number one pushback I get whenever we have this conversation is, yeah, but like, why should I have this conversation with my kids? Because the first extension from that is, if I bring it up, aren't they just going to get curious and go find it now more? Shouldn't I just say nothing, delay as long as possible in terms of having the conversation so that I don't spark something negative? Why should parents address the subject with their young children?
Yeah, this is such a good question. And I totally understand it. As a mother, I don't know, I feel guilty about everything. My kids, like, oh my gosh, I wasn't good enough and I did this.
Yeah.
And so parents can feel very guilty about things. But this is the thing. What you just described about delaying the conversation, that's what we've been doing for decades. And guess what? It's not working. All right. So if we keep trying to do the same thing and it's not working because kids are getting exposed, they don't know what to say about it, they don't know who to talk to, they get pulled in out of curiosity, they have no defenses because we have not talked to them about it. And I've met a lot of people that will say, well, I'm sure my child would come and talk to me if they saw pornography, they would come, right? Like, that is not true. There's very few kids that will do that. And mostly they'll do that if there is a warm and safe conversation that's been started. For example, just an example, there's a mom who brought her daughters over for a play date at a friend's house. And when she came to pick them up, she saw them in the front yard. And the little girl, the friend, was showing her daughter something with the smartphone. When they got in the car, the mom said, what was she showing you on her phone? And the little girls kind of looked at each other and they said, a My Little Pony video. And, or some little video like that, the kids like. But then she read good pictures, bad pictures to her girls a few months later. And they said, Mom, what she showed us that day, that wasn't a My Little Pony video. Mm. That was pornography. We saw pornography. She showed us pornography. And the mother realized, she said, my kids lied to me. Not because they're bad kids, but because they did not have the vocabulary. They had no idea how to describe this. They did not know what to do with it. And so it's so important that we give our kids the vocabulary in a non kind of scary way, just and then in a comfortable way, kind of a scientific approach is kind of how I do it.
Yeah.
And here's like, you're taking good care. You want to take good care of your body. You also want to take good care of your brain, and not only, and what goes into it, right? What you see, what you hear, what you experience. So that's kind of where I believe, when going back to your original question about, oh my gosh, so scary. I just want to make one more point. Yeah. And that is, we all want our children to be innocent, right? I hear this, but I'll rob my child of their innocence.
Right.
You will not. First of all, the world out there is sending in so many sexualized cues. There's so many kids with porn on phones in elementary school, on school buses. Like every school bus in America is a XXX theater because kids have these phones and unprotected phones. So I don't think you can do more to your child to make them curious than the world is doing for them. So it's much better to arm them. And I know I'm kind of going on here, but Nathan, let me tell you one more story.
Please, that'd be great.
Okay.
Parents, as we strive to raise kids who love God and use tech, it's intimidating to look at this next stage of life and think about what academics may look like for them. When you're thinking about college, consider George Fox University for your children because of three things. First, it's going to give you a more intimate, known environment where they have a focus on being known personally, academically, and spiritually. Your child will grow in their faith. 93% of undergrad students at George Fox last year, through the 2025 academic year, said that being at George Fox has helped them grow in their relationship with Jesus. We also want them to grow academically, which means being a part of a university with rigorous academic standards and opportunities to be engaged. They have a nationally recognized engineering, nursing, and education programs, as well as chances to study abroad here within the U.S. and then internationally. And finally, personally, to be part of a vibrant campus atmosphere where you can play intramural sports or part of their NCAA Division III athletic programs with 23 sports available. The goal here is to go to a place that's going to support your goals, not try to make you support theirs. To have that goal be to raise you up to be all God's called you to be, and to truly equip your young person with in my case, my sons or my daughter, to love God, and then from their love of God to go wherever God has called them. And that includes being equipped with a degree that'll help them do that, to be missionally equipped to love and serve others, to lead where God has planted them, and to know the gospel for themselves, to be able to share it with others. So George Fox University is an amazing resource for our kids, for our community here in the Northwest, and for anyone who's looking to raise up a young person who can love God and from that, love others.
So there was a girl whose mom had read her good pictures, bad pictures, and she was on a bus going to a field trip, and next to her girlfriend was sitting next to her, and some kid come back, showed them pornography. Now, the girl that had been warned turned away, and she said, nope, it's like she recognized it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what my mom told me. And I know it's not good for me. And so she turned away.
Yeah.
And she was able to overcome her curiosity, whereas her friend kept looking. So let me just ask you, which of those two girls were safer from having a problem with pornography? It was the one that kept looking, that had not been warned, that was caught off guard.
Yeah.
So don't let your kids get caught off guard.
I love that. I love that phrase of just don't let them get caught off guard, and be the loving one to introduce a hard subject. So two stories from my end, just to build on what you're saying is exactly true. In experience, we went to state basketball this year. So went with a group. Group stayed in a hotel, and one of the young men on the basketball team was with a group from our team. So there were 5 of them probably playing pool. The group left, and he was going to finish his shots. He was not in that room by himself for more than 3 minutes. 2 strangers from a different team, both mid-teenage, not adults, walked up to him and said, hey, want to see something cool? And just flashed a phone to him with pornography on it.
Right.
I mean, we're talking 180 seconds max. This kid is left unattended. He is not looking for trouble. And a couple kids who thought this would be a funny joke walk up to him, and this kid's 10, who is being shown this by 2 boys who were in their mid-teens. He walks out, tells his parents. Now, they can't unsee that, right? But because there's relational connection, he's not left to his own shame or his own questions or his own future Google searches. And I tandem that story with my own personal story. I was raised by loving parents. I went to a Christian school. We had dial-up internet. It took a lot of time to make a mistake online when I was growing up. And yet, the shame that comes with that pairs with that curiosity. And we are more likely, like as an adult, the way you overcome an unhealthy curiosity on the internet is by talking about it with others and recognizing the damage that's done. If there was no problem with pornography, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But what we know is that introduced to young minds, the later we can introduce the actual images, not the topic, the images, and the earlier we can introduce what a healthy relationship, healthy view of oneself and of others looks like, the better the child does. They get to see like, oh yeah, I don't like the way I act or others act or the way this affects us. Like, so both personally for my own life, and then we're talking in the last 6 months that happened. This resource is powerful, and you're right. We can't just avoid it, so I shared one way. You mentioned on buses. What are some other ways kids are exposed to this content without seeking it out? Because I saw a stat that I love to share with parents, that while 75% of kids have seen pornography, 52% didn't see it on purpose. They weren't looking for it. So you mentioned a friend with a phone and a bus. Are there other like top ways kids are exposed to this content?
Yeah. In fact, every January we publish an article about, how porn is targeting children and all the different ways.
Mm.
So I think we had like 13 ways, portals to porn.
We'll find that article and link it in the notes.
Yes. But, they can see it on music apps, Spotify.
Yeah.
They can see it. I mean, there are podcasts that are sexual podcasts that they can hear things that's basically porn. Libraries will allow, a lot of libraries will allow, I think anywhere there's a screen. Like I've heard now of kids getting into porn via a treadmill, the screen on a treadmill, internet connected treadmill screen.
We own a Peloton, and just this last week, we realized that they pushed an update that gives it YouTube, and YouTube, because it's going through the Peloton, doesn't follow our network rules because it shows up as the Peloton website. So that's a fun little extra bonus, folks. Heads up, your Peloton, not meant for kids, and I get it, but also a headache for us as we try to figure out new jujitsu to make safe things safe again. Yeah. So that is wild.
So there's a lot more that you can look at, but like anything with the screen and any app, you were talking about how they can get onto YouTube. Like I've seen, and this is even old, but like I saw a video of a kid, I don't know, he was like maybe 9 years old. And he was showing how, maybe he was younger, showing his mom how he got from this little art app on an iPad. And there was no browser on that iPad. So they thought, oh, he's totally safe. Just through all these back doors and got onto YouTube.
Yeah.
So that's why I always push, yes, we got to be on top of technology, but we have to instill an internal filter into our children's minds, a disposition to reject pornography because they know why and they want to, because you're never going to be able to, put your thumb in the dike and do all those, the whole, it's raining. And so they have to have what I call digital defense skills. They have to have those skills in order to keep their mind free from it. And they're kids that do. They can make that choice, but they're much more likely to make that choice if they're persuaded and if they're not caught off guard and they're persuaded and given a plan.
Yeah, I love that. So then let's talk a little bit, let's give some nuggets to our listeners right now. How do you explain the difference between good pictures and bad pictures in a way that kids can understand?
In the book, we start out, as you know, talking about good pictures. Oh, here are good pictures of our trip to the beach or a cousin's wedding or something, right? There's these good pictures out there and they're great, but there's the opposite. There are bad pictures and they're bad for you. And they involve, so the definition that I use in the books goes something like this. Bad pictures or pornography. The definition that I use in the books is very simple and age appropriate, is something like this. Bad pictures show the private parts of the body that we keep covered with a swimsuit. And bad pictures could be cartoons. It can be pictures that are made in your mind, like through books or reading. It can be a video, right? It can be a still photo. So bad pictures show the private parts of the body that we keep covered with a swimsuit. They focus on them. And they can, so that's kind of a very simple one. But then in the books for older kids, we kind of go a little bit more in depth of how it can make you feel and how it can feel like the pull of a giant magnet and, other things it can kind of do to you to start to make you look at other people differently. So in describing, here are good pictures and those are good and we want to put those in our minds, we need to limit the bad pictures because those things can actually create We talk about the release of dopamine and, actually change the way your brain sees people, and it physically changes the brain. We know now that pornography addiction, just like any other addiction, decreases the gray mass, the prefrontal cortex. And that's where your ability to put your brakes on. It basically weakens your brakes so that you want something, your brakes aren't strong enough to keep you from going for it, right? So
Which
those
is
are the
terrifying, especially in a brain that already has an underdeveloped braking system.
yes.
And I
that's what
love
we
that.
need to teach them.
Right, which is then the relationship acts as part of this braking, right? Like parents, we get to be part of the brakes. You're not being mean.
Yep.
You're not being old-fashioned. You're being loving. And
Yeah.
this book helps you do that. And again, we're talking about Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Guide for Girls at this point, because you did add, you mentioned it briefly, and I just want to touch on it. You added that sometimes there's words that make pictures in our brain that can be unsafe and unhelpful. And I love, love, love that addition, because it can be so hard to think of pornography as text, but it absolutely can, because at the end of the day, it's okay, what is this doing in you and to you? And it absolutely is a tandem with the image-based pornography that we're so used to hearing about. And it absolutely is making its way into books that are pitched to young people that we want our kids to be prepared for. Okay, so this was the end of part one. I hope this conversation was encouraging. If you have any questions, you can reach out. Nathan@gospeltech.net is my email, or at LoveGodUseTech on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. You can reach out directly to Kristen. They're on all the socials, so you can find Defend Young Minds, and you can pick up a copy of this book. I know the conversation isn't done, but if you're already into it, check it out. Go to Amazon. You can find Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, a guide for girls. And then join us next week as we continue this conversation about how we can defend young minds and how we can raise kids who love God and use tech. Talk with you then.